Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. I'm Dave, the founder and CEO of HR Payroll Systems. We are a free website that helps HR professionals choose the right software. And I'm joined by Tess from HR Knows. Hey Tess.
Hi Dave, how are you?
Good. Basically, just to give everybody an overview, we're working with Tess, who's creating some content around HR and COVID-19. She wrote an article that's entitled COVID-19 Special Report, The State of Human Resources. Basically, I was curious as to how HR was responding, and the profession was really just kind of evolving as this pandemic has gone by a few months now. And so Tess delivered a great article, which I encourage all of you to read. It's going to be linked in social media. But I thought there were probably things underneath, other topics that would be fun to just discuss, and things maybe that weren't in the article that might have come out in these interviews. So Tess, I want to give Tess an introduction. Tess is a writer for HR Payroll Systems. Tess worked for several years in HR and is now doing a lot of things around content and course creation. So yeah, really glad to have you, Tess. Thanks for joining. So we spoke to 5 different HR pros in different industries across the country just to get their input on how things have changed personally for them and how things have changed for them within their workplace. And so just to jump right into those questions, this pandemic has brought on definitely a heavier workload for HR. What areas do you think were especially impacted?
Yeah, that's an understatement. From when I talked with our HR sources, they said that they had a volume of emails and phone calls and just putting out fires like a rate they'd never seen before.
Sure.
So instead of going into panic mode, a lot of them turned to their communication tools and abilities to connect with people and make sure they were keeping everyone informed. And also at the same time, keeping management informed of what was happening with employees as the state started shutting down and people started shifting into different roles and things like that.
Right.
So it was a balancing act for sure, but communication was one of the main areas that they had to really focus on initially. And then, of course, the administrative processes that come along with that, handling shifting people from working in an office to working from home who've never done so before,
right,
and making sure they have all the equipment and resources and support they needed to be successful and productive, and be able to adjust with all the panic that was going on with, having to be at home with children and or things like that. And then
a balancing act.
Exactly, and then HR was balancing a lot of things all at once, and then, of course, other things like handling layoffs, terminations. Unfortunately, some companies did have to let people go or have to furlough people, and they're slowly going to be bringing people back. But there's a lot of administrative processes that go along with that, payroll, COBRA, all those kind of things, handling benefits questions that HR had to quickly be able to respond to and handle those tasks. And then lastly, just having that strategy. Where do we go after this? Do we hire people? Should we hire remote workers now, or do we transition all of our workforce to remote? How do we handle those things and do it in a reasonable manner so we can maintain the business? So I would say the unknown factor was a big thing with HR. A lot of the HR people I spoke with and continue to talk to, that there's still a lot of uncertainty. And so they're trying their best to stay ahead of what's happening, what's trending.
Yeah, and sometimes I read in the article, you just have to be comfortable with not having all the answers.
Exactly.
People come to them looking for answers, but HR doesn't have all the answers because this is such a fluid situation. We are, I think, sort of stabilizing and getting into the norm of things, but especially at the beginning, sometimes just being comfortable with being uncomfortable and not having all the answers for employees.
Yes, definitely. And that's sometimes a little bit foreign to HR because we're used to having all the answers and knowing all the rules and laws. And then things were changing rapidly in a lot of those areas too. So yeah, it's a little bit uncomfortable, but I think a lot of people just rolled with it and did their best.
Yeah, not just employees too, having to, working with management and coming up with strategies when things are so fluid. Like how are we going to handle this paycheck protection, and how can we implement that really quickly? So,
Mm-hmm.
being adapting to a really dynamic and changing situation. Obviously, technology is something that can help with it. How did you find that HR is leveraging technology to accommodate this pandemic?
Well, I think from just a standpoint of, common sense, using more of the automated tool, automation resources that are available with technology, just to handle the sheer volume of tasks that have come in, hiring, firing, payroll, benefits, all those kind of things. Those have been, a major plus for most HR folks, but also having systems that integrate and talk to each other so that time is used efficiently, and it reduces waste and reduces errors, in information, because when you're pushed against the wall and you have a lot of people to process, you got to make sure that you're doing it, correctly. So I'd say those would be the two areas that I saw most people using, technology.
And then probably self-service tools as well to really help employees access their own information and make sure that they get what they need.
Absolutely.
If there is like a termination or they need paychecks, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. To anything that can be taken off the plate of HR, scheduling, requesting time off, any of those kind of things are definitely a benefit to HR.
Sure. Next question. Charles Reeder, one of the people that you spoke with, he mentioned that the pandemic shifted the priority of the hats that he wears as an HR professional. Did you find this to be the case with the other HR professionals that you spoke with about sort of shifting of priorities with the different things that HR balances?
Yeah, I like the way he put it, with the wearing of hats, because as you know, HR, we, tends to wear a lot of different hats and depends on what's going on, but that just comes with the territory.
Right.
But I think, it didn't really surprise me that he was talking about shifting priorities, because that was just necessary. There's no way of getting around that. But I do think that one of the areas that did surprise me is that in doing that, HR at the same time was embracing the transparency of everything.
Yeah.
So while they're having to shift gears, maybe 6 months ago the main goal was to increase employee engagement. Well, maybe during the pandemic it was to keep employees safe, and healthy. But they were being more transparent about it, and they were demonstrating to employees that they really cared about their well-being, speaking on behalf of management, we're having those difficult conversations with employees, which, it can be uncomfortable, but it's also something that HR is very good at.
Yeah. Again, being comfortable with the uncomfortable. That's a theme there.
Exactly.
How do you think that this has changed HR's value in the short term and in the long term?
Well, HR has always been a valuable team player, but up until more recently, they've not always had a seat at the table. They're just there if a problem comes up or if a change is going on to try to help manage things. But now people are seeing what they do outside of the organization. Those outside teams are starting to look at them and say, "Wow, they did a lot for our company." Even smaller companies, just being able to respond quickly, get the resources together needed to make things happen. And so I would say that HR's value has definitely increased quite a bit in the eyes of, their colleagues and other, team members. And I think it's going to continue. We're going to continue to see that. Yeah,
definitely. And did anything surprise you that came out during these interviews with these HR professionals that you talked to?
A couple things. One of them was, the fact that I think it was David Rader brought this up, that he said that he noticed that one of the things that he didn't realize before, but then he saw during the pandemic, or, as things were progressing, is that the staff that were working remotely for the first time, or maybe it was a new experience for them,
right,
were highly productive. And that we've always kind of known that. There's statistics out there that say, remote people work like 4 hours more a week than their in-house peers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because they don't have those social distractions and some of the things that go on, within a brick and mortar.
Right.
Workplace. So we always kind of knew that, but he actually saw it. He saw the production numbers go up. He saw people being more productive, and it redefined how and when people work too. So it wasn't just those 9-to-5ers. There were people working late at night to finish reports for a meeting, that next day, or, pushing their schedules out because they have children they had to put to bed first, or have meetings late at night, things like that. People are very creative. So I think that surprised him, and I think a lot of other HR people too. People just don't work 9 to 5. If you work from home, you can work other hours, and you can work at your peak productivity.
Right.
So I think that's definitely going to change the world of work as we know it. When people start coming back, we've got to kind of think about that. How's that going to impact?
Yes, this huge sort of experiment that companies have been forced into, not can work at home succeed, but how long is this something that we continue? I read recently that Twitter's CEO announced that they're going to allow their employees to work from home forever, as long as their job can accommodate it. So I think it's no longer sort of an if for a lot of companies. It's just like, how do we go about this work from home?
And the other thing I saw that was very surprising, that I was actually very pleased to see, were just some of the self-sacrifice that HR made. One of the sources, actually, her wedding was changed or canceled because of, the pandemic, and her peers came together and held her a virtual bachelorette party.
Right.
So there is just like, people got back to being human again.
Yeah.
And I think that's the human factor needs to continue to be there in HR or in any field. But I think that just seeing that sacrifice that she made, to be there for her community, and them being there for her in return, was just really heartwarming. Yeah. So
great story. Okay. To close out, I do want to thank the HR professionals who were gracious enough to be a part of this article, and I want to list out their names: Leslie Tarnacki, Christine Sharpley, Denise Baker, Charles Reeder, and Stephanie Shatley. Also, thank you to you, Tess, for this great piece that sheds light on an important topic that I was so curious about. And I think that this isn't sort of this is a snapshot, but this isn't like the whole picture. I think that this topic is going to continue to evolve. And I love to read that HR is rising to this challenge. I never had a doubt. And it's great to see just, people talking about how they have dealt with it. There are challenges, but there are certainly a lot of positive things that have come out of this as well.
That's true.
I do want to say before we end this that this video is, again, not a substitution for reading the article. There's a lot more information within the article that definitely take a look at. This was a piece that took a few weeks and a lot of hard work. And again, thanks to Tess for your determination there. Again, this blog is going to be linked if you're viewing this on social media. And that's all we have. Thanks, Tess.
Thank you, Dave.